Hello, my name is John Reynolds. Welcome to Extraordinary Life Stories. On this episode, I'm talking with Olivia Jenkins. Olivia is a dynamic entrepreneur and the visionary founder of Louise, a pioneering beauty brand renowned for its innovative and sustainable products. Olivia quit the world of employment in marketing to follow her passion for jewellery. There's so much purpose and soul in Louise. The name itself, a legacy to her late mother, and her mission, to empower women to feel good about themselves and enjoy jewellery that lasts and is sustainable. Olivia is refreshingly open and authentic about how much she battled with her own confidence and fighting imposter syndrome becoming an entrepreneur. Now she's completely flipping the narrative as a trailblazing founder that's inspiring others to follow their own passion and flourish. I can't wait to talk with Olivia, so let's get into it. Olivia, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me, who is Olivia Jenkins?
So I think this is a really good question because I definitely still don't know. But what I do know is I'm an entrepreneur. I started a business 3 years ago, and for the last 3.5 years, I've sort of been scaling and growing that business. And yeah, I think that's pretty much what I know so far.
Yeah, there's a lot there. But take me back to a young Olivia. What were your early influences that influenced your career decisions?
Yeah, so I grew up in Wales, so I'm from Cardiff originally. And Wales is a really small place and everyone sort of knows everyone. So I was very much in like a tight-knit community. And my school was amazing and very supportive, but I never really had an idea that I could do anything out of like what is regular and what is normal. So from when I was like 16, did my GCSEs, did my A-levels, went to uni, got a corporate job because that's sort of like what everyone did. Yeah. So I'm really grateful for that, and I had a really lovely upbringing in childhood and my school was very supportive, but it was very much if you wanted to work, you would succeed at school, but if you didn't want to work, it would probably have been a bit harder.
I find that really interesting because I can parallel that. And you openly said when I asked you who you are, you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
That had to be unlocked, sounds like, as an adult.
Yeah.
It wasn't encouraged or even stimulated as a child.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why are the schools not kind of moving with the times and kind of inspiring, entrepreneurial activities and even teaching things like financial literacy and wellness and mindfulness?
Yeah.
What do you think is going on there?
No, I honestly think it's crazy because I don't really remember anything I learned at school like that helps me in my day-to-day. And I also even did a business degree, and I still don't think that degree actually has like geared me up into actually owning my own business. I think it's all just a little bit too textbook, and I think it's like a bit outdated. And I at school was never ever encouraged to like start my own business at all. I just literally had like blinkers on. It was, you have to go to university and you have to get a corporate job. But yeah, I think it's just probably a bit outdated.
Yeah, I think you're archaic. I think, if I'm right, I think the school systems were almost designed to create jobs for industry.
Yeah.
And we haven't moved with the times.
Yeah.
And one of the big reasons I wanted to talk with you today is I've got 2 daughters, 13 and 14 growing up, and I want them to follow their passion. I want them to be entrepreneurial. And ultimately be in control of your own destiny and all the things that you're flourishing with now. So I want to know, what was the catalyst? What was the change that allowed you to kind of have that vision to drop what you'd always known and actually then go entrepreneurial? Yeah,
so I think for me, COVID played a huge part of like that shift in my change of lifestyle and everything like that. I think it did for everyone. So when that happened and you had to stay at home and the job changed, it was a lot of time spent at home thinking about like what you actually want and what I really wanted. And for me, I literally remember the day. So my friend texted me saying like, what days of the week are you going back to the office? And I remember thinking, oh my God, I can never go back to that office. Like I never want
something
to
had changed.
Yeah, it literally was like a flick of a switch. I was like, I need to do something different. But I don't think I would have had that change without having so much time with COVID, just thinking about life, I guess, because there was nothing else to do.
Yeah.
So from that point on, I literally said to Jack, who is my now fiance, I was like, thank you. I was like, gosh, I don't think I want to go back to the office, and I don't want to do that corporate life anymore. And he has been an entrepreneur from like when he was like 6. He was one of those kids that are like selling sweets on the playground, and at uni he had like 5 different businesses. So he has always been like through and through an entrepreneur.
Love that.
Yeah. So he's
the exact opposite of what you are.
Yeah.
But actually, how well did that combine?
Yeah, so good. So whenever he used to talk about having his own business, I was like, you're actually crazy. Like, why would you want your own business? Like, and he would work weekends, and I would be like, can you just stop? Like, I don't get it. Like, I never really understood it, because he would obviously be working towards his business. So it just meant so much more to him than my corporate life. So I went to him and I was like, look, I'm really not happy in my job and I want to do something different. And he was like, well, why don't you start your own business? And I was like, you're crazy. Like, how on earth am I going to start my own business? Like, I don't know. I literally was in that box. I didn't know accounting. I didn't know product. I didn't know manufacturing. I literally was a total blank canvas. But he said to me, he was like, you know that there's no difference between me and you. Like, the only difference is that I've done it before and you haven't. And it honestly was like another like flick. I was like, oh my gosh, like I actually think I could start my own business. And then from that point, it sort of like snowballed into like me obviously then starting the business officially.
I love that, like the encouragement and the support, which actually relates to how we've been introduced as well. Moving on to Steve Hewitt, who was the CEO of Gymshark for 10 years. He's like a mentor with you and an advisor and ambassador. How important has it been having that kind of been there, done that advice from your fiance to Steve, to be able to then flourish as an entrepreneur?
When we first started working with Steve, the business was, just to give you a bit of context, so Jack worked alongside his business, and he basically said, when Louise starts to be as big as mine, I'll like move over. Obviously, it didn't take that long. So he sold his business and he moved on to, now he's the CEO of Louise. So he came on full time.
I didn't know that. I love that. So him encouraging you, and as a natural entrepreneur himself, he's now sort of putting wind in your sails.
Yeah, so he loves it. Yeah, he's really commercially minded, so like really propels the business forward. But he was like, if I'm going to come onto this business, we need to get some advice from someone who's been there, done that, just to make sure like we're going down the right path, focusing on the right things. So we actually had an incredible Black Friday in 2022 and sold all our stock from November, December, January, February, March. And then we were out of stock and we were like, oh my God, we need some help. And we reached out to For Now and we started working with them. And it was initially just on like an advisory basis. Like we were just like, look, this is where we've got to. What do you think we need to do next? And it was just really just like a natural relationship that happened. And eventually, Steve was like, I love the business, loved the team, loved the story. So he was like, I really want to be involved. But his help and just like putting us on the right path has been like game changing for the business.
Brilliant. And I know him as you know well, and he speaks so highly of you and he's so excited about where you're going, but I missed a bit out actually. So from that kind of I've had enough in the whole COVID scenario to then the encouragement from Jack. There's still a massive chunk there where that you're going right against the grain. It's all you've known. And there are so many people in that position, right, that are unhappy, employed in a corporate role, and dream or even have an idea, but they're not brave enough to do it. So there's the encouragement, but then there's also the action you've got to take yourself, and also to come up with the idea. So if you just give me a bit of context there of what led into starting Louise.
So I was like, what on earth am I going to sell and what business am I going to do? And I have always been fascinated by jewelry. So when I was younger, from like 16 to 21, I worked at Pandora just as like a sales girl on a weekend. And I loved all the customers. The customers were so lovely. They would come in, they would tell me their stories, where they've been, what they've been, like what charm they got in what country, what everything sort of meant to them. And they basically found jewelry so special, which has always then made jewelry really special for me. So I loved that it was all about like memories and everything. Like whenever you speak to a woman or a man about jewelry, they say, oh yeah, I got this when so and so did that, or like it's always tied to something.
There's a storytelling element.
Always a story, So I had always been loved that element of it, but then it also gave me a lot of technical knowledge of like what worked well, what didn't work well, what seasons you need to go after, what like holidays that you need to go after. So I had that background knowledge, and I knew that for me, I had a pain point with jewelry. So Pandora, when I worked there, was always silver, but I love like gold and rose gold, and you could never buy it for less than like £1,000 for a bracelet. And I'm obviously not going to spend £1,000 on every time I want a piece of jewelry. So I really noticed that there was like a gap between really high-end gold jewelry and then just like from a more of a commercial piece that was high quality, affordable, and that you could like wear it all the time. So with jewelry, if it's gold plated, you can't wear it all the time because the plating might come off. So I knew that this was like a pain point for myself, and I was like, well, if I'm having this problem, I bet lots of other women are having this problem. So I started basically researching into different metals and materials, and I sampled something from a supplier. And he was basically promising me the world. He was like, this jewelry will never tarnish, like blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like, he's obviously just like some really good salesman. But I was like, I'll give it a go. I'd never really heard of stainless steel before. So I knew that jewelry was always silver or like with plating, but I'd never heard of stainless steel. And got the samples, and I was like, right, I'm really gonna like wear these every day and like try and prove this guy wrong. Yeah, really test it out. And they were just living up to expectation, and I was like, okay, I think there's something super special here in the product, and I could make it really affordable, really like for my target audience. And I was like, I'm basically just going to brand it to myself, and then hopefully there's more people out there like me who will also like it and buy into it.
Yeah, which they are, and I love that because you've got passion and purpose there.
Yeah.
And empathy, which if you can put empathy into business, you know, you weren't able to find jewelry that sort of ticked the box for you, affordable, durable, and create it.
Yeah.
And not only have you created it, there's a real soul to Louise.
Yeah.
And I want you to elaborate, because there's a relatability to you.
Of course, yeah.
It's so very much sort of linked to your own personal brand and your personality.
Yeah.
Again, with that empathy. But you know, it involves, you know, your mother, and I'll let you explain and elaborate. But that whole thing ties in where I think people came back to storytelling. You know, someone in the office next door when you came in, when they found out you're here, instantly was showing that she's wearing your things, and it's just that whole like there's a warmth to it.
Yeah.
So tell me how that's been received to you and how you kind of created the name Louise.
Yeah. So once I knew that I had the product, I was like, okay, right, now I need to actually make a brand. And again, I went to Jack and I was like, I think I'm going to call the brand Louise after my mum. And so she was called Deborah Louise. And he was like, okay. He was like, you can. But he was like, you know, if you do that, like, you're going to have to give it a real good go. And I was like, yes, exactly. Like, that's why I want
No pressure.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, this is in memory of her. So this is a really heartfelt.
So my mum passed away in 2017. And that's why the logo says underneath like established 2017. So I basically wanted to set it up because I want Louise to be known for like more than just a jewelry brand. I want it to be like a vision and something that people look to, that when something dark happens in your life, you don't have to just have that cast over you. Like, you can choose how you react to it. And I felt like turning Louise into a business that I worked so hard on as a tribute to her meant that it was so much more than just selling jewelry. Like, like you said, it was a passion and a purpose and something that I could work towards every single day, and almost like helped me. It was like almost part of like my healing process of losing her.
You're keeping your mum with you on your journey, right?
Exactly, yeah. And it also, loads of people always say to me like, oh, do you find it hard that the brand is named after her? And I actually find it amazing that it's named after her, because like I can talk about her every single day, and I know that when people go through grief, they actually find it really difficult to talk about the person they lost, and everyone has different experiences. But for me, I find it so comforting that I can just every day like see her name and be reminded of her, and basically just keep her memory alive.
I love that. Exactly. It's a legacy, but it's a living, evolving legacy.
Yeah.
And as I say, I can tell it's almost like you've got her with you along the way, and she's sort of on this journey.
Yeah.
And setting this business up in itself was, again, a complete kind of change and shift for you and a challenge.
Yeah.
You're now doing it, and then in the middle of setting the business up, you lose your brother to suicide.
Yeah.
I mean, setting up a business is hard in itself, right? That must have been really difficult to deal with.
Yeah, no, it was really, really tough. And I actually think losing my brother was way worse than losing my mum. I think it was like a huge shock, and I think it was way more trauma than losing my mum, because when someone dies from cancer, you almost have like a few years to almost like grieve them, because you know that the outcome isn't always good. But when my brother passed away, it really like knocked me like for quite a long time. And I do think that it was really, really hard to grieve alongside also running the business, because I had quit my job and I was working, we didn't have any employees, so it was literally just me. And I had this like giant business that I had to like keep running myself, and also have so much trauma in my personal life to go through. But what I find is really comforting is it just makes me so strong as a person. And I honestly think I've been through more at 27 years old than probably most people have been through in their whole lives. But it's made me so resilient, and I just feel like, honestly, anything else, like just bring it on, I'll be able to get through it. So obviously it's horrendous and I wouldn't wish it upon anyone, but it does really build character and resilience.
Yeah, and again, as you say, none of it by choice, but actually clearly some things that have been out of your control, but you've had to deal with, have made you probably a better individual, a better business person.
Yeah.
I know when we first talked about filming together, when Steve connected us, and you were saying this is actually out of my comfort zone, and I was listening to you and feeding off you, and I was like, there's no pressure. I just, Steve's talked really highly of you. You've got an amazing story. That's really interesting to me. Might inspire my daughters.
Yeah.
And then you literally told me, I said, no, this is what I need to do more of. I want to put myself out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I want to do more. It's that growth mindset.
Yeah.
And I think this is really relevant to both of us, actually. If you look at how you were, and I was going through school and, not fitting in, but not sort of actually thinking entrepreneurially, to now probably having an incredible growth mindset.
Yeah.
What do you do for your own kind of mental fitness, if you like? Do you crave sort of self-development podcasts, books? Are you kind of growing that side of you? Because so much of that makes you a better entrepreneur as well as a better person, right?
Yeah. I think one thing for me is I quite like little quotes and sayings. So like I always think that life happens for you, not to you. And I think that's a huge one, especially if you're going through grief or something that is out of your control, is to know that that will lead you down a path that might not have happened if that bad thing didn't happen. So I think it's always trying to have like a positive mindset when bad things happen, and it's like, okay, how can I grow from this? How can I learn from this? So that's definitely one thing, is like a growth mindset always. I would love to say that I do loads of meditation, but I don't. I like the idea of it.
I like that, by the way. It's refreshing because you're a successful founder, CEO, and there's this whole stigma of I'm up at 4 a.m, I've run a marathon, I've read a book, I've meditated before I do it, and it's like, actually it's quite refreshing.
So I don't meditate. I wish I should do it more. One thing I do love is reading. I do read a lot, but I actually don't even read business books. I like
So you use it for escapism.
Yes.
So you're reading fiction.
Fiction books. So like for me, that's like a form of meditation. Like I can read and get into a book and lose an hour. And for me, that is so much more beneficial for me than trying to sit there and meditate, because I've just been lost in this book that doesn't mean anything. There's no pressure. It's a stupid love story. But like for me, it's like, oh my God, I've gone into this world and just switched off for an hour. So that's something I do. I read every single day.
That's good. It probably stimulates your creativity. You're in a creative business, right? So you can have an escapism, but you're still stimulating a part of you that gives you ideas and flows into your life, your business side of it. What about the physical fitness? So they kind of go parallel. Do you have that whole kind of make an effort to try and do some exercise, and what do you do that works for you?
Yeah, so I do like physical exercise. I try and exercise every day, even if it's just like a walk. I find it really helps like clear my mind. I'm really into running at the minute, but I'm not very good at it, but I'm just going to keep going to try and
You run at your own pace and you run
exactly. And I've signed up to a High Rocks with my friend in October. So I really like physical exercise. Like I'll always, in the morning, first thing. I also feel like it like sets me up for the day. So if I start my day with exercise, it's almost like I'm like winning the morning. And then it just means then whatever happens throughout the day, I can just tackle that rather than thinking, oh, I need to go to the gym, oh, I need to go for a run. So I always try and do that in the morning. Yeah.
It's good to have a challenge as well. Actually,
Yes.
if you sign yourself up to stuff, you're kind of beholden, right?
Oh my God,
you've got to work towards that.
And I can't let her down.
No, that's true when someone else is involved. Yeah. It's a good shout.
So I'm trying to do that. So I think like eventually I'd like to run a marathon, but I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah, well, you're heading there.
Yeah.
Someone else will sign you up for it.
Yeah.
So I want to know why. So I get the why behind Louise and the relatability, but still, it's such a competitive marketplace, right? To come in to make jewelry in a sort of already full market, if you like.
Yeah.
How did you get that traction? How have people found out about you, and how is it flourishing so well?
Yeah, I think one of the main reasons why it is so successful is because I'm a very authentic person. So I wanted to make the business very authentic. And I think in the world of social media and TikTok and all that things, I think lots of people are not true to themselves, and they're not always being like fully themselves or fully authentic, which is then leading into their business. And I think like people see it through it, like customers see through it. So I think that people come to Louise because they see our authenticity as almost like our superpower. We also have like a really compelling story, obviously. And I think a lot of people have been through really hard times. And I think that they come to Louise and they buy into Louise because it gives them hope that even if they are going through something really hard, they know that there is a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel, because I've been through it and I've created it. So I think authenticity and the brand story is definitely, and we've obviously got a really good product. So that helps.
But it's a perfect marriage, and I think I haven't actually asked you this, but it's clearly a success story. And yet, have you had? And I'll talk about the business side of things, because you've had some incredible difficult things to deal with emotionally.
Yeah.
But from a business point of view, have you got things right most of the time because of that authenticity and vision, or have there been some things that have gone wrong that have failed, and what have you learned from them?
Yeah, so I think, look, every business comes with challenges and failures, and I definitely haven't had a smooth, perfect business journey. I think one of the biggest challenges for the business was definitely in the beginning, because I had no idea what I was doing. So I was literally just like, I was just figuring it out along the way. And I think it's really easy now to just see the perfect polished business that looks like on Instagram. But if you had looked like 3 years ago at our social media, at our packaging, even like everything was just a total mess. But people they just say, oh, it's an overnight success. And I'm like, no, it's like taken 3 years to get here. I remember when we first moved into a fulfillment center. So I used to do all the pick and packing just from like my spare room at home, and it got to a stage where I was like, oh, I don't think I can do this much longer. Like it is very soul destroying and it takes so long. And we were going into this new fulfillment center and we sent all the stock there, and she was like, where are all your barcodes? And I was like, what do you mean, where are our barcodes? And I obviously had never had to barcode a product before, so we sent them all our stock with no barcodes on, and it was like, she was like, you need to get like a barcode license. Now I know how to do it. But obviously we had sent like, say, 5,000 units there and they didn't have any barcodes on, which obviously is a huge issue for a fulfillment centre.
But this is the entrepreneur, but you're learning, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And actually, as long as it's not catastrophic, or kind of a branding disaster.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we figured it out in the end. It was just costly.
Yeah. And what's it's actually just on that kind of talking about the things that don't go so well.
Yeah.
From a success point of view, sitting here now, what is your definition of success?
So I think it's a really, really tricky one to define, and I think success looks different to everyone. For me, I would say that it is constantly evolving and constantly becoming the better version of yourself. But then I also think it does come to a point where you don't always have to achieve. Like, I think you can also be content in what you have built and grown, and you don't always have to like always find that next step. I think it's actually really powerful to find success in not growing as well once you've sort of reached your...
So it's not a destination.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that very much feels, and I feel that resonating for me massively. That's your feelings.
Yeah.
If you now look at Louise, what would be your, let's use Steve's term, the sort of the North Star? What would be the kind of moment for you where you're like, oh, would it be a celebrity endorsement where you're like, oh, she's wearing, or would it be something that happens, or sort of a scale, like you're global? What would be the kind of real thing where like you've made it?
Yeah, I think it definitely wouldn't be a celebrity. And
I figured that.
Yeah, because only because like our customers are our celebrities. Like, so for me, I don't really mind if there was a celebrity that wears it, because like my customers are so important to us. So for me, they are basically
I can tell each and every one of them is as important.
Like that lady earlier.
Yeah.
To me, she's like a celebrity.
That.
Yeah.
That's the thing I thought
yeah.
you'd be
So
the same,
for me, that's amazing. I think I would love to become a global brand, and our mission is to become a global brand. We've had huge traction in the US, and that just keeps getting better and better and better. And I basically would just love to nurture that community, but then also, expand globally would probably be one of my North Stars.
Yeah, totally. Well, I have loved meeting you. I love what you're doing on your journey. I'm going to stick close to sort of watching how you flourish and grow. And thank you so much for talking, because I know it was sort of outside of your comfort zone, but I hope you've enjoyed talking.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah,
I've loved it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, Olivia.